Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye Caseman, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group.
Okay, so as I say, what I am talking about tonight is what happens when things don't go right in weight loss. So, like I say, it's apt that something's not gone right with my tech. So if you are finding this, let me know if you are watching live or replay. Any comments that you guys leave, any likes, any hearts, etc., all help to let the Facebook little gods know that other people might want to see it. So anything that you can do there, it will mean that hopefully this will get out to other people. So that would be fantastic. So give me a thumbs up in the chat or hit the like button if this is something that's ever happened to you. So you're trying really hard and you're working on your weight loss, but you have a bad day. Whether that's a bad day at work or, you know, you just want to go knee deep in everything in the fridge. You realise that perhaps you've eaten something that had more calories or points if you're a calorie or point eater, and more than you realised. And you're then convinced that you've blown it for the week and that you're never going to lose weight as a result of, you know, that meal or that day. You feel like you want to scream. You're so annoyed with yourself because you feel that you've blown it, and all the other thoughts come in there of, you know, why can't I just be thin already? Why is weight loss so hard? You know, or maybe it's actually going really well, or you think it's going really well, but yet that damn scale is still just not moving its ass. You're not alone, right? You know, these are all common things that come up for people along their weight loss journey. We have thoughts and feelings. We are human beings. And, you know, sometimes we can't help those come in. And even if you're particularly well practiced at trying to manage your thoughts in and around life and weight loss, then, you know, these things can still come up. So, and it can feel very discouraging at times, and you will feel like you want to just give it all in. It's just too hard. You know, we've all been there and we've all got the t-shirt. So for those who don't know me, or know me well yet, or new to this group, I am Faye Caseman. I am coach at the AAA Way weight loss program, where I help women to ditch traditional restrictive diet methods and find more joy in life and weight loss. That is the plan. If anybody would like to have the notes from this evening's live, let me know. Just leave me a hashtag show notes and I'll get you the link over to the blog when it's up later in the week. So I think I've said it about 3 times now what we're going to cover, so I won't say it again. But if you are ready to hear about my tips on what kind of things can come up that may have you feeling like you're derailed your progress, give me a thumbs up and let me know. So what I'm hoping to share, like I say, just a few tips, just a few musings really with regards to these kind of things that can happen. Hopefully you will get some tips and value from that can hopefully help you gain a little bit of momentum. So I have been busy trying to network with my fellow ladies in the Wellness for Women group, and so I'd like to give a big shout out to thanks to Bex, Karen, Jade, Kim, Claire and Lisa, and also some of the AAA women who've been kind enough to be talking to me about how things have been going for them and how they've been working on their well-being at the moment. It's really helpful for me to get an understanding of what you're all working on. That way I can obviously hopefully produce content that is going to be helpful to you all, as well as, like I say, trying to sort of just help out and do what I can. So I've also been trawling through other weight loss groups, and I go in there obviously trying to spread my message of hopefully weight loss joy. That's what I'm trying to do, that it doesn't all have to be hard and doom and gloom. Also trying to find other members for the group. So whilst I'm talking about that, if anybody does know anybody else who's working on weight loss or their well-being in general, hook them up with the group. There's a blue invite button at the top when you go into the actual group itself. Super easy. And then they'll just automatically be able to come in. Anyway, back to weight loss. So a running theme that I noticed this week when I was in the groups was, you you know, like I say, people talking about things when things weren't going to plan. So, you know, they were perhaps commenting that they felt that their motivation was a bit dry. They just couldn't get motivated. There are quite a couple of people who felt that they were on plateaus, people who'd got a lot going on at home, relationship problems, other people wanting to eat food around them. I myself went out for a meal last week with some well-intended people who were like, come on, finish your plate. And ultimately, there's just a lot that can crop up in your weight loss journey. It's not a particularly quick process often. And so there's a lot of life that can happen in between. So I was just going to hop on and talk about those. So the first bit that I'd come up with was Such is Life was the little title that I gave it. I know that I've covered this in previous videos and blogs, but I'm a firm believer that it's best to look at weight loss holistically. You can't really just focus on your chosen method of weight loss and muscle through it. It's not usually sustainable in the long term. You have to look at working on each little hurdle and obstacle in life and weight loss, and sort of knock down those dominoes basically one by one until you get to the point where you get to lasting weight loss. And so just purely focusing on, you know, restricting calories or whatever diet method, it's just not taking into account the big picture, and that's why often they don't last. You know, you might lose weight, but you perhaps put it back on because it's not necessarily always a way that's sustainable long term. And ultimately, there's a lot of things that can come up in that weight loss journey which will make you want to eat, want to quit. Like it or not, we are all emotional eaters. You may not identify yourself as such, but officially speaking, we are all emotional eaters because ultimately our thoughts lead to our emotions, lead to our actions, and so therefore you have to have a thought and you have to have an emotion, even if that emotion is desire or want. You know, then it will all start with a thought and some kind of feeling that leads us to it. And again, you know, we've all been there, boredom eating, proper emotional eating, you know, because you are genuinely feeling upset, emotional eating, and then stress eating. You know, these are all quite common. I saw this post in one of these other groups that I was in, and it was just like, how do you get over emotional eating? You know, I'm so stressed, I get bored, I feel emotional. How do I get over that? And there was floods of tips in there, all valid tips about going for a walk, distracting themselves, you know, making a rule that when I feel like that, I'm only allowed to eat carrots or whatever it might be, you know, and they may well work short term. But ultimately, my answer to the post, controversially possibly, was you need to work on the stress, the boredom and the emotion. And this is why in the AAA Way programme we focus on life and weight loss. We do that via working on self-compassion and problem-solving techniques. So again, if you're newer to the group, if you go and have a look in the guide section, there is a section there on self-love and compassion in your weight loss journey. I did a self-love loving a couple of weeks ago where I had a whole weekend of training on that, and I'm sure that will come back up at some point, which covered off a lot of techniques in which you can tap into self-love and compassion on your journey. It's a lot harder if you're trying to just beat yourself into submission all the way down. The other thing about life, there's other humans in it. Who knew? Other humans out there. It might not feel like it. It seems like we're all just sort of still crawling out of lockdowns, but you know, there are other humans in our world, you know, who will try and convince you to finish your plate. Other humans that will offer you food when it's not on your plan. Little humans who stress us out and or leave things on the plates that tempt us and want us to make little morsels that we want to eat, you know. And your first port of call in looking to tackle those things is awareness. So again, if you go and have a look in the guide section, if you are newer to watching, I run you through practically my whole program, which starts with awareness, taking actions and accountability. They're just the three pillars that we work on. Super simple. But once you've got your awareness, then you can start to take your actions, and then it's about trying to continue on with that and accountability and doing that. Hey Jackie, thanks for joining. And that's where motivation comes back into it, as well as, you know, working on building a bit of resilience, finding little tricks that can make it easier, tapping back into your whys. So we talked about whys last week, and I ran you through a little exercise, as well as using self-coaching, or as I call it in my weight loss program, mind ninja, because it's a little bit more fun for starters, but I always think like the thoughts that we can get creeping in sometimes are sneaky, like little ninjas, and we need to be little ninjas to work them through as well in life and weight loss. And ultimately for me, weight loss is just she says, makes it sound super simple, a series of micro decisions where we will make decisions that will serve us and some that don't serve us. So that was my little spiel on life. So let me know what, if anything, sparks for you. You know, what kind of things knock you off course in your weight loss, and maybe I can do some training on those particular areas coming up. Next section I had just to talk about was that weight loss is not linear. So again, we all know these things rationally, right? We know that the scale's going to go up and down. We know that, especially as ladies, you know, we have other influences like our hormones that will impact our weight loss journeys, you know. But it does mean that you will not always see a loss on that scale, unfortunately. And there will be times where you will plateau. There will be times where you might even backtrack a little bit. And that's all normal. But we've got to remind ourselves that those bumps in the road are normal, and that's not indicative of your overall progress. And so how I recommend that you look to tackle those is by looking at focusing on process goals rather than outcome goals, because that's the one thing that you've actually got a control over, is the process. Are you doing what you are planning on saying you're going to do? And if you do that and you're happy with how you've showed up, then that's important and that is to be celebrated. But if that then doesn't show on the scale, that's the scale's fault, not the, you know, there's a process problem somewhere. It's not a you problem. That's the most important thing to remember. And I say there'll be loads of times where you'll have little setbacks, or things won't go as to plan, or you perhaps don't show up as you intended to show up. You know, maybe you go on holiday and you have a few overeats and a little bit too much booze. Or maybe you've had a stressful, you know, week at work and you end up having a bit more comfort food than you planned to have, you know. And again, these little blips are normal. And it's important to just remind yourself that you've not failed. What's important though, and this is where the tip comes in, is to focus on how you're going to go forward. What is done is done. You can't turn back the clock on whatever it is. And so it is about trying to focus on your next steps, because what can easily happen if you don't is that you end up in a self-sabotage. You then end up in what we call the diet cycle, which is where you go through a cycle of overeat, restrict, overeat, restrict, overeat, restrict. And not only does that feel like ass, it also perpetuates the problem, because you never actually get to solving the root of the issue. And again, this is where this mind injury can come in, because you will probably have thoughts like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just stick to my bloody diet, you know? And the problem with that kind of thought is that when you ask your brain a question like, what's wrong with me? It goes looking for answers. It's a computer at the end of the day. And if you ask your brain what's wrong with you, it will go and find a million different ways in which it thinks there's something wrong with you. So the better answer is, you know, rather than sort of throwing away the day and the week, it's about trying to say to yourself, okay, well, what's right with me? What have I done? You know, what have I done well? What can I do? You know, what can I move forward? How can I move forward with love and compassion? You know, what can I celebrate as well? So watching out for those sneaky little thoughts when things aren't quite going the way that you planned with the scale. Okay, so I've just managed to scroll down and lose my place in my notes. There we go. Managing own expectations. That was the next one. So one of the most important things in the weight loss journey, I think, is managing your own expectations. We all wanted it yesterday. You know, at the end of the day, we want to lose weight so badly. And but it is, unfortunately, it is a longer journey typically, and certainly if you want sustainable weight loss, it is probably preferable that you do it in a longer and more sustainable way, so that it will last. Obviously, yeah, again, I'm in various groups, they're like, yay, I dropped 10 pounds this week, but realistically, that's probably water weight, but also, is that actually realistic? Certainly if there's been any kind of heavy restriction, which I do not advocate any kind of heavy restrictions at all. And so again, the important thing is reminding ourselves that we're not going to see results overnight, and that there will be setbacks. Again, the rational brain knows this, but obviously in the moment, the doubt comes, the disappointment comes, the fear comes that you'll never lose your weight and that all your efforts are for nothing. And that disappointment can then fester if you don't catch it and go unchecked. Again, it leads you into effort moments and sabotage. So how you want to try and deal with these moments, again, is through self-coaching or coaching, because obviously getting coaching is very powerful. If you've never had it, it is a really powerful experience. And it's a case of reminding yourself that there's so many things that can impact that scale. And as my coach used to say, it's just a piece of glass of metal that shits out a number. And so reminding yourself that it is just a piece of data is helpful. And one of the things we were talking about, one of the techniques that we use, or some of the members have used before, is that they basically say to the scale, they just thank it for giving its opinion. So thank you for giving me your opinion, but I choose not to accept it. Because you don't have to put your stall out by anything that says ultimately. But the key is to know yourself, know your process, and have faith in it. And then the scale starts to have less power over you. And you want to ask questions like, what am I making this number mean to me? Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? And how do I want to move forward? What can I celebrate about this week? And how can I move forward with compassion? So those are some of the things that you can ask yourself if the scale doesn't quite go to plan. And then I think I'm coming into my last section, which was about that there is an ebb and flow of motivation. So motivation is not a constant thing either. Some days you will feel like you have a ton of motivation, and other days you're going to feel like you're dragging your knuckles on the floor. So, the key thing really is to recognise that, again, it's not standard. I think when we start a weight loss journey, we almost expect that we've got to be on all the time, and that doesn't necessarily fit, again, with your life, and this is why, again, looking at it holistically in terms of like, your mind, body and your soul, because if you're not feeling it, trying to, again, if you're feeling really unmotivated, but then you're trying to say, right, okay, well, I've still got to go out and run that marathon, it's not going to happen, or it's not going to feel comfortable, let's put it that way. And so again, this is where the awareness comes into it, being aware of what are you thinking and feeling in that moment. And I would argue either trying to work with it or trying to look to improve it, which again is where self-coaching and all these kind of techniques can come into it. So, you can actually work on getting more motivated through self-coaching, because motivation is a feeling which starts with a thought. Or you can change your action. So recognise that you're not feeling it. Use your self-compassion not to beat yourself up. Treat yourself with love and kindness, and just take a step back, because sometimes you do need to take a step back to come forward in weight loss, especially. Because again, like I say, no point forcing yourself, in my book, to go and do some grueling cardio that you're really not feeling, you're not feeling right for, and then ending up losing a few more days because you've pushed yourself too hard. It's better to be realistic. So that's why part of awareness and gathering awareness in the AAA Way program is about gathering awareness on what you think, feel, what you're thinking, feeling and doing ultimately, and then getting to know that pattern. And then that's when you can step into action and start to decide what you're going to do, which is an interesting thing, because I think I mentioned it last week, but I have this model that I use when it comes to action so it was 3Ds, but I'm thinking of expanding it. So you're hearing this pretty much first. I was talking to a friend earlier. So basically I have this model where it's decide, do, but doable, decide, doable and discover. So you're going to decide what you want to do. You're going to make sure that it's super duper doable and do it. and then you're going to discover, and you're just going to look to see what happens. And then I added on a deal earlier, so you're going to decide, do, discover and deal, because when you discover, sometimes you might not like the answer ultimately, so sometimes you need to deal with that. And then there might even be a fifth one of do it again, because ultimately it is a cycle, and you just keep going around that, and eventually you'll figure it all out, and then you will have sustained weight loss. Okay, so again, you might be feeling, you're not particularly feeling motivated to have particularly healthy foods, whatever it is that you had on your plan, but you have a choice in that moment. Are you going to beat yourself up, force yourself to eat something that you don't want to, and then obviously get into again a cycle of feeling bad about that, and then that impacting? Or what's going to come out? Are you going to stick to that and then celebrate the fact that you stuck to that plan? So it doesn't really matter which way you go. It's just about gathering that awareness, deciding what you're going to do, doing it, and discovering how did that work for you. Okay, and ultimately you just keep figuring it out, hacking the system, just keep figuring it out until you get to where you want to do. And that's why what I feel is the beauty of the AAA Way program, is because you're not stuck with any sort of set concepts or rigid rules. It's all about listening to how everything works for you, so it's about learning and me helping you to build your own routine, basically, around your own around your own lives and your own weight loss and what comes up. Okay, so that is it for this evening. So let's say quick summary. What I covered was about making sure that you look to work on the root cause of things that pop up that derail your life and weight loss if you want lasting change. Be aware that motivation ebbs and flows, and you've got a choice of either working with it or against it and stepping into action, and really about working about what works for you personally. So it's not to say, I'm conscious actually that some of this could have come across as like, oh, it doesn't matter, just do what you want to do, just if you want to, eat this, then eat that. Well, sometimes you can, it is just about making sure that you are comfortable and happy with all the decisions that you make. And that is why the realistic planning and all the other things that I've talked about before are really, really important. Okay, I'm going to do something slightly different for next week, I believe. I'm going to put up a post either... I've got to do the graphic, so it's probably going to be tomorrow. I'm going to say it's going to be tomorrow. I'm going to put up a graphic tomorrow, but it's going to be an Ask Me Anything post. So I'm going to put up a post tomorrow. It's going to be Ask Me Anything. I think the overarching theme will be about momentum. So if anybody wants to share with me, how they work on building momentum in their weight loss, any problems that they've got with momentum or gathering momentum in their weight loss, pop that in there, and I'll just look to try and go over it all next week. And then if you've got any other just questions about things that are coming up for you, or things that you'd like a coach's effectively opinion on it, then drop it into that post, and I will look to answer it in next week's live. So that's my plan for next week. Okay, right, I am off. Thank you once again for bearing with me whilst I had tech issues. Next week I will try my other system.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.